to be subbing. I only have 14 subscribers on this channel, but...
Like you said, the freaks are gonna come out.
Redirecting us to YouTube now. And we are live.
It started with a craft. It was March 13th, 2013 at 10 p.m., 3 miles away from Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It sped across the city faster than I ever saw an object go. Did I make it up? I called the news station. I told everyone. They laughed at me. They called me silly, an attention seeker. I was alone. So I turned to the internet and I looked through so many raw videos I could find. Different videos that sort of looked like I saw, some that looked like nothing that I saw, and I found it, the exact same craft on
Thirdphaseofmoon. My name's Blake Cousins, and here on this channel, Third Phase, we bring the best UFO videos from around the world.
I found the craft. Now I just wanted the bodies and the documents. Then, in the midst of YouTube censoring, demonetizing, and attacking all my favorite UFO channels, I went to social media to find a platform that would still get the information out. And I found one.
Like, you need to understand yourself before you can understand this topic. I feel like my whole idea, my hope, that we would get along better, that people would open up and wake up. But, I feel like, I don't know if it was just me this year with the whole pandemic and everything that happened. Like, if I lost a little faith in humanity.
She has no idea about any of this stuff. And I showed her the 3 videos from 2017, the gimbal, the go fast, and the tic tac. And the thing that blew her mind was the audio. The audio of the pilots going, whoa, okay, we got it. Oh, man, what is that thing? Like, freaking out, right?
Oh, got it! Woohoo!
Roger. There's troubleshooting.
Did you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay.
That make no sense, and they just do them, and they're completely normal. But if you talk about aliens or you try to think a little bit outside the box, people look at you like you're strange. You get burned on the stake. Sometimes I'll be online and I'll be seeing, like, I'll see an account of somebody talking about UFOs and I don't know, maybe they'll be talking even about Stephen Greer and peace and love. And then you go on their account and you see their account and they're like, I don't know, it seems like they are a little racist or a little, with some of the posts, or sexist with some of the posts and stuff they're putting on their accounts. And you're like, I don't understand how you can have an issue with a race or with a certain race of your own species, your own kind,
Right.
and what they want to do and who they want to be, and think that you're you can actually understand a topic like the UFO phenomenon.
Basically, like, we're at the Titanic with Lou and all of, like, some different UFO Twitter folks. This picture is Deep Prasad and UFO Joe. And they've had, like, kind of a falling out on Twitter and stuff. So to be able to, like, have them together, in this picture, and then they both laughed at it. We're like, oh, thank God. Like, that's... So you can see Deep Prasad and UFO Joe kind of next to me arguing. So yeah, there we all are in life.
Twitter, the way it's designed, is just the perfect activist tool. And as I found that, I said, I got to start getting followers. I didn't fully appreciate its activist power until later. And then I begin to realize, whoa, this is something special. This is not Facebook. And I've been using it ever since. and not surprisingly, the UFO issue, the UAP issue, embraced it big time. And now it is a huge part of the activist process, and will be seen as such by history. UFO Twitter, the concept of the hashtag, the concept of tagging the messages, right? At so-and-so, the bing, 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 and it goes to their notification box. Being able to search hashtags so you can see all the stuff on a particular subject trending. All of this stuff is pure activism. Because I need more Twitter followers, because literally it's directly impacts your ability to get your message out and to address issues and deal with the government. Every member of Congress except for 2 has a Twitter handle. Almost all of the journalists have a Twitter handle. And a lot of people don't realize that you can always message them by doing a tag. If they have a DM, and most do not, you can message them directly. I have a DM. I want people to message me. So again, what can I say? Twitter is my friend. I don't care who owns it, except whoever owns it, I want them to keep it going, right? Keep it up, manage it, keep it going, and because we don't want to lose this. This is a wonderful thing.
For those of you who are just joining us from around the world, I want to welcome you. Today we're announcing to the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. You can't know his name, but if you were to know his name, you would have to keep that to yourself till the day you die.
I just met Lou Elizondo.
Through where we started referring to this guy by the letter L.
I wanted to show you guys the beautiful sign. It's a beautiful Roswell sign. And also, just in case you guys had questions about me meeting Lou Elizondo.
Anderson finished his career at the Department of Defense as one of the senior covert intelligence officers in the Office of the Secretary of Defense.
So happy Lou Elizondo was there, and we talked and took some photos, and it was interesting.
So I want you to all meet Lou Elizondo.
My name is Lou Elizondo. And as a career intelligence officer, I am accustomed to being involved in close-hold, nuanced programs involving national security. For nearly the last decade, I ran a sensitive aerospace threat identification program focusing on unidentified aerial technologies. It was in this position I learned that the phenomenon is indeed real.
Like I said, I got started a little bit early. We got to the filming location. You know, gotta stop here, for sure. But yeah, we just sat and I talked with Lou Elizondo for a little bit, and we talked about some things, you know.
I've never met him in person. From what I hear, he is legitimate. That's what I'm hearing. Even from people who are skeptical, I'm hearing that he's legitimate. So I'm leaning more in his direction. But I'd like to talk to him. I'd like to meet him for sure. Yep, definitely.
Louis, it was pretty chill.
Yeah, it was super chill.
It was pretty cool. We were kind of hesitant, like we didn't know, like, okay, how do we treat this? But we decided best route is treat it how we treat everybody. I mean, yeah, the dude worked for this ATIP and Guantanamo Bay and all this other stuff. But I'm sure we'll have him on again, and there's plenty of time to ask all the questions everybody wants to know that he can't answer anyways.
Super cool guy. Like, we had a great time. It was awesome.
Here right now, Lou Elizondo's interests are the defense industry, and he's said as much. He's admitted it last week on was it Toe, I think, with Kurt. I think he said something like that you know, he liked, his specialty is working on declassifying stuff for the big boys like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and Boeing and things like that. He's made other statements like that his interests are, but if you really just follow the money in this case, who stands to profit from technological disclosure? Those people who have had that technology for 20 years and are just waiting to unleash it. Who has a financial need to profit from this? The defense industry, who just lost their 20-year cash cow called the Afghan Iraq War, who just filed a bunch of patents under the name of Salvador Pi under the U.S. Navy.
There'll always be people that think he's playing a role or an agenda, working with the government, or, you know, being a disinformation agent. Hey,
everything that comes out too abruptly, it's just like Corbell in his videos or Elizondo. It's like there's something going on. It's like, why all of a sudden the switch? You know, the government for 70 years wants to hide stuff. Now all of a sudden they're going to start showing us this. No, I'm not buying it.
The UFO wars, which I'm actually just learning about now, and shout out to my new friends on hashtag UFO Twitter. That it's fascinating. I am fascinated with their fascination.
I loved being able to cloud surf, which technically, if you're in U.S. airspace and you're not legally supposed to be flying, like cloud surfing. It was a beautiful day and there were some beautiful clouds. and if we're in like our military working areas, we have a lot more discretion. But yeah, being able to surf the clouds. And do you know what I mean when I say cloud surfing? Just puffy cloud, and you can go up and you can just skim, you know, and do your aerobatics around it and through it. And yeah, there's nothing like it. If you think about just the volume of water that's in that cloud is enough to fill a lake. I know that there's questions about the timeline and how long was his tally versus how long was my tally, how long do our Wizzos have tallies. And it's hard to say for me, again, because of my perspective in the position of the flight and then also my experience level. But when I did see the churning water, my heart sank. So you had asked about like my emotions or what I thought in it. So I went from being excited to go get bad guys to then being really like my heart sank. I thought, oh my God, now we're on scene commanders for search and rescue. And whatever we were chasing is crashed and sunk. And then the Tic Tac crossed over the churning white water. And I was like, what is that? So, you know, excitement, sadness, followed by shock, followed by awe of how it was moving, followed by frustration that we couldn't keep sight of it longer and it disappeared and we couldn't follow it. And then when we got back to the ship and debriefed and tried to classify it, tried to say, well, what could it have been? What could have been in the water? What could have the Tic Tac been doing out there? And we thought, well, maybe it was a submarine and maybe it launched some cool new super secret missile that doesn't have a smoke trail or doesn't have, you know, anything that we would, fins or things that we would recognize. And then we were pissed. We were like, if that's the case, we were vectored into a blue on blue scenario. But then we were reassured that it wasn't, that there were no blue tests or exercises like that in the area. So then it was again like, well, then what was it? Confusion. So it was definitely an emotional roller coaster. But then, honestly, after a couple of days, you know, we got ridiculed by our squadron mates and other people on the ship, and that was all in good fun. But then after a few days, it died down, and you know, we got ready for our deployment, and we went to the Middle East, and life went on. So.
But if people aren't going to believe, you know, like Gary said, until it happens to them right in their front yard, if people aren't experiencing it happens to them and their family right in front of their face, then maybe they'll be a believer. Until then, until these UAP craft, if they are non-human, until they get out and start meeting people face to face and do a meet and greet, If they're non-human, I don't think people are really going to believe it. They have to see it for their own eyes.
Yeah, and I know I will go ahead and be on the record as saying I'm not out to prove this for other people. You guys are going to get information as a byproduct of me trying to prove things for myself. And that's where I know I get a lot of people frustrated. You know, I get a lot of emails saying, "Hey, take a look at my videos. Hey, take a look at my pictures." And you know, I find them interesting. I look at all of them. 100%. I'm not an expert in film, film or pictures, so there's no way in hell I know whether it's fake or not. So I just look at them and say, "Hey, that's cool." I don't care if people really believe me or not. My story is going to stay the same, beating the dead horse until the day I die. You're not going to find any extra material from the Nimitz encounter that I forgot, or that, you know, I mean, if somebody else tells me something and then I say, okay, yeah, that sounds right, and then I'll tell it like that. But I'm not gonna. My story is only going to change based off of facts. Period. Like I was under the impression somebody had told me that we got an underwater active sonar track during the encounter, and then after tracking down several sonar guys, I couldn't get a valid verification of it, so I stopped talking about it. And then I get a drunk dial one night and they say, "No, it wasn't active, it was a passive track and we're not supposed to talk about it." But I don't give a shit, fuck the government. They were all shitty, drunk, and just all about, you know, screw the government, you know. So to me it was a passive track, which makes more sense because we didn't have the equipment deployed that would be able to allow us to get a triangulation of an active track. So it made a lot more sense with everything else that I was finding out about it from other people's stories and things like that, and what I heard from some of the other sonar technicians. But frankly, I don't really give a damn who believes what anymore. So we know that they're able to go through the air without displacing air, but are they able to go through the water without displacing the water? I mean, that's a much denser material, and if they can, that's in itself particularly amazing. But if they're going that fast, I mean, that's probably fast enough that even if the craft was like only the size of like an F-18 or something like that, like the Tic Tac, if the Tic Tac was doing hypersonic speeds underwater, that could cause a tsunami.
No, the shadow person, I want to say, is kind of a little bit more hair raising. At the time, it was a little scary. You know, I didn't really know what the hell I was seeing, and it was only really after I had kind of looked, and then I had to take a second look again. You know, after I'd heard the sounds again. You know, the bare foot on the ground, and that's when I had stood up and started booking after this thing, and it took off down the wall and kind of cut into the admin section. A lot of people ask me if I smelled anything that night, and I couldn't. Nothing comes to mind, you know, like nothing out of the ordinary, you know. Nothing. There were no like fuzzy electrical pulses, or the lights weren't flickering, or nothing strange like that either. It was just this dark, completely black shadow, fuzzy shape of a person just standing there for a split second before I got up and started chasing after it. I stood up and I turned around to go look, and that's when I had seen, you know, the shape of a person and a shadow, you know, essentially. I don't know if you guys have ever seen there's a color or a pigment now that is essentially the blackest of blacks, kind of, and it essentially absorbs all light, and that's basically what I saw, that specific color. And because people ask me if this thing has been translucent or not, and it wasn't. It was very opaque. It was very opaque towards, like, especially the middle, And, towards the edges, yeah, it was a little translucent, but that's mostly because it was blurry or like, I want to say pixelated, but not like digital pixelation, just fuzzy, blurry kind of, blurry.
Yeah.
Focus. And that's essentially what I'd seen. And that's when it booked it down that stretch of wall and turned the corner into the admin section. And I chased after it, turned the corner past it, and I couldn't hear it. I couldn't see it anymore. As far as I knew that it had completely disappeared.
The higher beings, and when I say higher, please don't think I'm using any kind of religious term whatsoever. It's all about the density of consciousness that they have achieved over their span of existence, and so it's not a judgment. They're not in positions of judgment and authority. It's not that kind of relationship at all. But that has been intentionally strangled here. It's what's called the veil. Everybody hears about it. It's intentional to create this forgetfulness and to allow for an awakening experience and self-realization. So having this experience and having this ongoing contact for several weeks, they were putting me to say, let's get a team together, bring them here. Let's provide the proof. It'll be okay. We had this ongoing conversation where I was very reluctant, and I'm almost, to be frank, panic contacting.
And did you have security clearance?
Oh yes, of course. I had a top secret, special, sensitive compartmental information, special access programs. Well, that's good stuff. Them an experience on his property that we need to figure out what the hell is going on. And you can't invite a former Pentagon Defense Intelligence agent to your home and take them to meet extraterrestrials in a tunnel and then expect they're going to go away. That's not going to happen. I've had a consciousness awakening, but I haven't lost my mind. I'm not going to walk away. And I don't really care what anybody online says about this. I really don't. I have work to do. I have lots of different kinds of work to do. This is a soft disclosure. That means I have to have some kind of public contact. They remind me daily, you're a mouthpiece. You're a mouthpiece. By the way, not the. And so I have to. It's just a lot of pokers, guys, and it's a real balancing act. And there's been some real significant damage that's been done. There was one hallway that I could see. There were two entrances to what I now think were doors to other areas. And then there's this one area over to my left that's completely black. And I still have no idea what was there. I have no idea at all. It's like they will not let me see it whatsoever. I don't know how that makes everyone feel. I know how it makes me feel. I don't like it, but I suppose they have their reasons.
How many and what did they look like?
Right. So there was a gray that I believe was artificial, some sort of artificial technology, not organic in the way that we would think of organic, human idea of organic. It did, but definitely had a consciousness. There were, and it had gray skin. There were 3 tall whites that were standing. There was a male and a female standing next to each other, and there was a 3rd male that was standing in the back. There was a 4th that would come now and then from down the hall, but wasn't standing there initially when I first came in. And they were all dressed very similar. Well, the same, excuse me. They were all dressed the same. Like similar to, I don't even know how to explain it. If you could take like so weird, like a wetsuit and like cross it with like a military uniform, that's what it looks like they're wearing. And I say that specifically because the boots that they're wearing were pretty thick and serious. They were black leather boots, and they were very there, and they had quite a bit of tread.
So the grey's rock leather.
Like
got
leather,
style.
like leather
So
boot.
they
What
are
do you describe as leather?
Leather combat.
Was it like a living organism leather or anything like biological skins or any kind of like craziness? No.
It just looked like black leather. I mean, like
boots.
a black military boot, like a real no nonsense tread on it.
So how would they speak? Would it like you hear a voice inside your head? I mean, like
No, it's like it was like this. Like an image would just come into my head that had like everything. I would just hear it, see it, experience it. It's like an experiencing of communication. So I could feel what they felt, or what they wanted me to feel. This very honestly, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. They wanted me to feel at that moment that they were kind of surprised to see me. Oh, Anjali, we've been wanting to talk to you, was really what was orchestrated. I don't know why, because it's very clear to me now that it was all planned out, all of it. And I just don't. I'm still like everybody else trying to understand it fully.
We're on a little adventure, all of us. All right, 12 p.m. and I hate these masks so freaking much. So, okay. Anyway, so I put the mask on. No one can get mad. Did I lose my room key? No, I didn't lose my room key.
Everybody's wearing a mask, so if you have one,
Yes.
They are on an Indian reservation. If you don't have
Oh
one,
yeah, no problem. I understand.
Perfect.
There's so many
We don't want them to
outbreaks.
shut down the-
Oh yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, thank you for doing your part. Thank you.
Audrey, it's so nice to meet you.
So here we are. There's Travis. There's James Goodall. John D'Souza. I think I'll hit up Apollo first.
It's been a very stressful morning because I was helping him finish his presentation, and then I had to do mine and I had to set all this up, but I finally just got all that done.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling good. My presentation. Did you see my presentation? Yeah, if you want to find me on
The
YouTube.
Organite. Here's the shaman spears.
Yeah. Well, I just started a show a year ago.
Which Pentagon footage?
Like Go Fast.
Oh, the Go
And the gimbal.
When I call the Tic Tacs.
Yes.
I believe that the Tic Tacs, the Go Fast, the Kimball videos, I believe that they are all showing the same thing, which is an American super weapon. And they may be reverse engineered from Roswell. It's possible.
how has your life changed after being on the Joe Rogan show?
Well, I think it continued to improve in many ways. You know, I think it's changed a lot of people's attitudes because he takes it seriously, and so it helps them think about it, the subject in a serious way.
Can't really discuss this until the coroner's report.
Around some guests, I have Amy. She's Alien Girl on YouTube. Just
you know, we had gone through the bridge and we came out the other side. There was a sphere, a white sphere that was, it looked like a cue ball, you know, tightly crisp, mildly lit, and rose from the banks of the Housatonic River. And then off to the right, there was another one, which my brother saw first, which was orange, and it had a rolling to it. Like I said, in Unsolved Mysteries, you know, or Netflix, if you will. It was like the center was turning, almost looked like a sun. So as we were going, it was kind of going the same as our car. And so my mother pulled over next to this telephone pole. The front of it had like a glow because, you know, I'm looking at the front of my car. Thing was, you know, circular. But in the direction our car would be going, if that was the front, they had a reddish glow on top, tapered off, and there were no lights underneath it that I remember. There were no, you know, landing gear, windows, nothing like that. It was very industrial. And then we heard tapping, like when you were deep in a swimming pool, like tap, 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 you know. And it came back to me when I had an MRI, except the tapping was much higher pitched. And but we were already stopped, so there was nothing, no stones hitting underneath our fender wall or anything. And then there was this like a flash of light, which might have been that white sphere, but I don't remember seeing it. And then the inside of our car lit up. I could see the dashboard, I could see the back of my mother's hair, the door handles, and pretty much everything. The radio was like, but it wasn't blinding me. It wasn't like a bright light. And then there was this silence, like someone just, you know, turned the sound off of life itself. Felt weird. It was like we were deep underwater and again, but totally muted. And then that's really the last thing, you know, I remember. And, you know, and so my mother, my grandmother, my brother, and I all found ourselves, you know, in what we best can describe as like an empty airplane hangar. But where we were was a lot bigger than what we saw. We weren't on the craft. We were somewhere much bigger. And so this room was like empty. There was a light, like a single fluorescent tube, and then a space and a single fluorescent tube is what it looked like, where the ceiling met the wall, you know, right in line there. And it was fairly dark, but enough light that I could see. And then I remember being grabbed really hard on the left arm, and I was brought out a doorway and basically handed off to someone else who took me down this very tall, narrow hallway, very lit up. And when I got to the end, there was a left or a right. It wasn't curvy and modern. It was very industrial by design. I took a left. I remember taking a left and then brought into this room where this big area was like, looked like glass block, like you saw back in the day, that kind of almost like an MRI room maybe. And then where the glass kind of met the wall, there was an opening on the right and opening on the left, which was like a doorway. And at one point, you know, I felt very, you know, placid, and I don't remember why I was sitting down and doing what I was doing, and like everything was okay, you know. And then I remember being scared all of a sudden, and I darted out the door. I went into this big open area, which I've referred to my whole life as like being a big empty Walmart. It was that big. So if you look at the airplane hangar area, what it resembled anyway, the hallways in this other area, I mean, it was 3 to 4 to 5 times bigger than what we saw. And so I was brought back in again harshly. And that's something else I want to, you know, it hurt, you know. These were humans, you know. It hurt. And I was put back on this table, and the table rose like this, with a thing like this, and then another one came down from the top, so the two met, you know, like that. And this big cage came over me, and it was in 2 separate pieces. The first piece came over me, but it wasn't so tight to my body that I couldn't see down it was not against my skin or anything. And then the second one came over that, so they kind of went like this, and these holes on the sides lined up, and there was these hands that came through, and there were these like huge looking. These things looked like big raisins, and they were adhered to my skin through the left side. And then I remember like a bump to my head, and then I woke up, if you want a word, woke up, whatever, came to in this big open area where I was first introduced to this airplane hangar looking area, and then I was back in the car. Now, when I got back in the car, or when all of us were returned to the vehicle, however that happened, my grandmother was now in the driver's seat, and my mother was in the passenger seat. Again, kind of like human error. But at the same time, when we stopped and we're looking at this craft that looked like the turtle shell, the car was running and the headlights were on. When my parents got back, found themselves back in the car, at least my grandmother was the only one or the first one to come to, she swears that she had to turn the ignition key. And sure, hours had gone by, but that to me does not sound like a typical abduction incident.
Like when I saw the aliens, it happened in real time. It's not like a memory, so when I seen the aliens, I was like, and I didn't even see him completely. I just like was turning my head. Like when I saw like half of one eyeball, like one eye, I saw half an eye, and in my head already like knew everything that was going to happen. All my senses were on high alert. I was like super sharp. I felt like I was like Spider-Man. Like my senses were tingling. Like I was reacting very quickly. But yeah, when I saw the aliens, I knew that. I've had little glimpses here and there of it. But after that situation, I started seeing ghosts and shadow people. And like I just opened. I just was able to see a whole other world after that I never saw before. To this day.
Interesting.
To this day.
Because I've seen them my whole life.
Yeah, and recently, the past year, it's ramped up. It's almost like a nonstop thing. It's pretty intense.
I've had about the last year and a half. It's just been escalating like I've never seen before in my life, and it's just some of the stuff that's been going on is just mind blowing. Go ahead.
Describe the interior of the craft.
All right. First, when I was in it, I was in a kind of a closed in, if you want to call it, capsule area. It was kind of squared off, dark inside of it, and I couldn't move really around. But I remember looking down, and there was this red light that kind of went along my left leg. Coming out of there, I know they took me into a round room where there was a procedure table on the left-hand side that they put me on, where I had 2 grays at my feet, 1 up by my head on my left side.
I don't remember even being in the ship. My encounter was like a 2-minute encounter that I remember. I don't actually even remember being taken.
You don't at first. The memories are there. Something that we really need to have. There's been too many lies, too many years of disinformation, too many people whose lives that they've ruined because they made fun of them, made the people feel like they're crazy or different things. So it's really, the truth needs to come out, whether Susan Go, the DOD, is going to allow it or not. But I think we're getting Senator Harry Reid close to the point where he's just going to start dumping massive amount of information, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, in my 30s, then I started having like what I would legit call like, okay, these are not normal like beings. Like when I was going to so when you become a Reiki practitioner, you have to get an attunement, which basically opens you up to the like universal flow of energy that you then kind of use to help heal other people, right? And so after I got my attunement, I was working on someone and I saw this light being. I would call it a light being now. At the time, I had no idea what it was, and that was strange. And I remember saying to my teacher, I was like, "Do you see that in the corner over there?" And she was just kind of like, "Well, what are you seeing?" And so I described it. She was just like, "No, but I'm not surprised."
Oh, my name is Shane Frakes. I live in Washington State. I'm a combat vet. Did 10 years active duty. About 2 years ago, I had my first experience. After that, I became pretty obsessed with geology, actually specifically rocks. It'd be gone, and that's how I'd find it again and hit me again. It looked like someone lit a match, and you see bright orange, and I just watch it. dance like a tadpole. I bring my son outside. I learned early not to do that, but he got scared. My youngest. We used to call them dancing stars, is what he calls them.
So he's seen.
Yes. And that's the weird thing. I'm under the impression I can point him out to anybody. My neighbors. That's why they started messing with me. I saw it this morning.
Did you?
4 a.m. First time, and I didn't do it on purpose. I got locked out of my room, so I went to look, double fisting some coffee. Like 4 a.m. As I'm walking back, I look up over my hotel, and my phone's in my room, and I was locked
Are
out.
you around here? Because somebody else
I'm
saw
a block
something
away.
last night.
I'm a
And
block
this
away.
morning, like 3 o'clock in the
Yep,
morning,
that's me.
somebody
That was
else
me
saw.
too.
No, but somebody else
Oh, I know
did
that.
the same thing, but from
I didn't know
this
that.
hotel.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm right
that's
there.
why I'm like,
I'm a block away.
okay, I need to find the guy because we
Block
saw
away.
him last night and he said, oh my God, it happened again.
Yep, block away. Matter of fact, it was almost.
What did you see?
Well, orb, just bright as can be. You would think it was a star. I can tell you what the star is. The way it was, as I'm walking, I'm like, is that moving? So I stopped, kind of sitting there, and I can kind of see it doing this, just and thing, and I'm like, so I'm trying to shake it off. So I go inside, and I go to get my camera, and I come back outside, and I go, and it's gone. So then I know that I did see it because it's not a star. It would have still been there. It's a matter of maybe when I went inside and came back out, 30, 40 seconds. But like I said, all of a sudden, I don't know why or how. I know a lot of people discuss it. All of a sudden, they just know where to look, when to look. That's what happens every time. It's just like, bam. And this one, I intentionally don't look up just because, I don't know. It's just been so intense. And then this morning, I was like, I was getting ready to go to the Blindfrog Ranch tour, too. That's what I was waiting on.
Were you?
Might be a plane.
It's moving over here.
Look over here. Yeah, we're moving this way.
Those clouds are pretty low. Now, anyway, we'll talk about what we've got here. We got the sequoia that you see on the TV show.
Yes, this is.
It's a very, very, very strange place. And lots of things that happen, and they seem to. You see, some of it's personality dependent. And there's some people who have other, really strange experience. One of our guys was like, well, there was one incident where we talk about there was something moving through the olive trees, sort of like Predator, where you have a distortion going on. Because if you watch the program, they say don't dig and all that. Well, we had that too. And it was like, if you disturb the area, you would find that, more strange things would happen. Their mission is to create a TV program, and just strange things happen, and they catch some of them. But they have a schedule when you go on, and when they're going to interview, where they're going to go, and as opposed to, let's run over here and look at something strange that happened.
So from the hybridization program, I know you've identified a couple of hybrids that are your own children, right?
It's very common for abductees to have hybrid presentations. It's not the only thing that happens in abductions, but it is a very common thing that happens. And I've been presented with 3 children, and one of them I got to see later again as an adult.
No.
Exactly. They take eggs, ovum from women and sperm from men, and they produce these hybrid beings. Now, I've been watching a lot of things on UFO Twitter, the podcasts and interviews and stuff lately. And there's some people kind of naysaying or saying that they don't think that that's possible. Look, obviously, I want to say don't get hung up on the science of the hybridization thing, because if we're talking beings thousands, tens of thousands, millions of years older than us, and thus therefore where are we going to be as a human race thousands of years from now, tens of thousands, hundreds, or even millions of years from now. That technology would look like magic to us. We're gonna have understandings about DNA and genealogy and everything that we can't even comprehend now, you know. So I tell people, look, they're doing it. Okay, you know, eventually maybe we'll figure out how they're doing it, but they are, because it is so common. We're talking, you guys, we're not talking, oh, this is just a couple abductees saying this, or a couple hundred. We're talking millions of abductees. First off, there were 2 different Roper polls done that said close to 4 million people in the continental US alone. And that was major abduction research organizations tacking on questions to the Roper poll. And none of them were like, have you been abducted? There were these 10 key indicator questions. You had to, by the way, it was paid for by Bigelow, you know, back in the early 90s.
Interesting.
And the major abduction research organizations got together, the major abduction researchers, to come up with the best questions to ask people that would be uniquely related to the experience. And the Roper organization only counted the results of people who answered yes to all the 10, you know, to the 10 key indicator questions. The hybrid stuff is so common. People are having interactions with hybrid children. It's not just their stories. That's another thing I'm hearing.
It was the case was opened by Barry Gaunt, Kentucky MUFON director at the time, 2013. I get contacted by television and stuff, and I like to work with a Japanese channel, but they wanted to do something on implants. They wanted me to do a removal on the one in my knee first. They sent me in for x-ray. They couldn't get a picture of my knee. It was not there. My whole knee and shin were gone. They couldn't, picture after picture. Finally, you know, the doctor was like, I can't get a picture of your leg. I can see the rest of your entire body, but there's a blank spot where your leg should be, you know. And so we quickly changed that around to, can you find an implant that's already been removed along with the person it was taken from, and we can go do a spectrograph. I said, cool. So I was able to locate patient 9's implant, and no, the CIA did not take all of his research when he died. You know, it's in you know, the hands of friends and family now. I wish it wasn't in a basement somewhere, you know, in someone's house. I wish it was out in the open. Maybe one day we can work that out. But I was able to negotiate. So we got patient 9's implant. Hasn't been seen in 22 years. And I got a hold of Tim. I said, Tim, you're not going to believe this, but I found your implant, and I also want you to be on a TV show, you know. And it just feels like the world doesn't care anymore. I mean, here is solid proof that's about to go down, and maybe 400 people heard about it, you know. But and now my job was to find a lab. I need a lab that'll run a spectrograph on an unknown object. This was very hard to do. They want details, you know. You can't just, you know, show up like you're at a popsicle stand and with $1 and get yourself a popsicle. You know, there's a process in a spectrograph. I was able to get them to agree. They were happy it was a TV show, so, you know, that could lend credence to their business and the work that they do. So it all worked out. So they all met in front of the lab. They filmed it, and the spectrograph came back, and these scientists were like, oh my God, this thing is atomically aligned, which we don't know how to stack atoms. If we knew how to stack atoms, the whole world would look completely different. Microtubules, the whole 9 yards, and these guys were scratching their head. They had no idea. 50-something metals, most of which are not even from this, you know, our neck of the woods, you know, as far as our solar system. But this actually belongs to me. And there's certain places and certain people you can talk to maybe go out and find pieces of your own, and maybe it's something or maybe it's nothing, but you can, it's not cheap to have it analyzed, and that's the problem. There's just not enough money. There's enough scientists now, but where's the, you know, where's the grant? Where is the billionaire people that are interested in holding up a piece of paper to the world and saying, we're not going to wait on the president. This is fact. No, I do know Dr. Roger Lear did send one of these implants to the DOD, and the DOD was pissed. They wanted to know right now who made this piece of metal. They wanted to know, and Dr. Roger Lear is like, I can't help you. I don't know who's making these metals. These people claim that they're having abductions.
I was 12, 13 years old. During the night, with a little bit of light, they did come in at one point. And yeah, greys. I mean, just the classic. Right, so yeah, these beings would come in, they'd sit on me. Now, the room was dark because I'd be like, get off me, and put my hands out, and I'd push them, and so I was touching them and feeling them, and because they'd sit right on my chest and right on my stomach, and you're like, waking up to that, you want to, and I used to shove them off and get out the bed and run into my parents' room screaming and wouldn't go back in my room, which, like I said initially, I'm pretty sure they thought it was nightmares. And although I was saying there were these things in my room, but these beings, they were small. I pushed one on the head, and I know people talk about them having dolphin skin. The head felt like a watermelon, and I know that sounds really stupid, and it gives me this vision of this green watermelon and pushing it in, but that's what it felt like. It was this leathery but smoothish sort of feeling that you felt if you run your hand over it, you might even get a squeak. It wasn't cold. It wasn't like fridge cold, but it was colder than us. It wasn't the same body temperature like we have. And they do things like they'd put their fingers over my nostrils and put a hand over my mouth, or not pull my hair hard, but like feel my hair. And just generally, they were pokey, proddy, sort of almost like mischievous elves sort of thing. But as if they were two kids mucking about and just seeing if they could get a reaction or seeing what things felt like or whatever. But definitely the body shape, the bigger heads, small bodies, that type of thing. I'd scream and I'd run, and I'd go shaking and crying into my mum and dad's room.
And while out during COVID shooting space photography, I started seeing UFOs. So then that's like a huge paradigm shift. I started like actually witnessing this, documenting it. And then I just became so fascinated, and it took over my life. Like I dropped my career to pursue this now, because I knew this is a really big deal and something really, really big is happening. And after a bit of capturing these UFOs on camera, I began telepathic communication with them. And I actually got to see some of these beings who are visiting us. So I just find it so fascinating. They've been involved with humanity and Earth for a very long time, from my understanding. And the whole starseed thing, a lot of us, Earth isn't our original home. Yeah, over the next few years, a lot of things are, there's no coincidence that like right whenever COVID happened, all of these UFOs start appearing. It's in the mainstream media. It's like blowing up. That's for a reason.
And so the Inviting ET book addresses the issues of how do you have a CE5, whether it's by yourself in your garage staring at the night sky through the open door, or with several dozen people on top of the Sandia Mountain. What do you do to deal with your fear issues? So here's what they told us. The Pontes facility beneath the Sandia Mountain was retrofitted into the old tunnel system that runs north-south on the eastern side of the Rocky Mountains. But the Ponte retrofitted and put their information station into an already existing tunnel system. You can see, in fact, if you take a satellite view of North America and start studying the desert Southwest, you'll see long straight lines in the landscape that don't correlate to any roads and don't make sense geologically. And you have heard maybe legends or stories from the Hopi and the Zuni about how they were taken underground and kept safe when above ground was not safe. If you would like to see what the Ponte look like, then we have another video that provides that. But Portraits of the Ponte 2020 is right there. And it gives you an idea of what the staff members that we have met thus far look like. And so we've gotten to know a number of these individuals. And in fact, the unusual worldwide phenomena that's happening with the Ponte is if people study the Telepathy 101 primer and learn to invite the Ponte per their instructions. And by the way, there are protocols that they taught us for how to invite them. The primer has allowed people around the world, because it's now been translated into more than a dozen languages by volunteers. But the people around the world who have invited this crew from the Sandia Mountain to their homes or to their CE5 event now not only recognize, oh, you're Ponte, because they know what they look like, but they also recognize a lot of these guys by sight and by name. And so one of the first individuals that we were introduced to is a lovely gal by the name of Druti. And Druti, when she shows up at somebody's house, especially for the guys that invite her, that sense of just overwhelming love that she puts out, that comfortable feeling, that graciousness comes across very clearly. Versus the first individual that we met, whose name is Commander Tilcom. Tilcom is more of a stern, managerial sort. We met one of their pilots. The first other gentleman that we learned about was Radar, and Radar Roz rhymes with Oz. Radar was almost the opposite of Tilcom, youthful, fun, light, joking, and we got to know their sense of humor. That's Trudy. That's Trudy right there.
He was a stellar cartographer too.
Yep, he's and that's Trudy also. They've taught us some of their culture. The "we exhale our light together" is part of something that they have taught us, is a parting greeting. So when they leave each other's company, frequently they will give each other this whole phrase, and it's a litany of sharing the light with each other. Excuse me. But we've learned other phrases. A casual phrase for saying goodbye is, "Wear your day with ease."
There are a lot of ancient cultures that practice something very similar to that. Even the spirit in me acknowledges the spirit in you, and in goodwill and in love.
We are here at UFO Expo, and we're going to be meeting with a lot of people. Benny!
We got to turn the music down.
Nice to see you guys. Yeah, we got the whole fam here. Take a seat. Hi.
Melissa is
Yes. Yeah, for her birthday. Oh, for me. Okay.
For you, Ben.
Can I give my own interpretation of it, or
I'm
are
gonna
you
go
doing the
first.
reading? Oh, okay.
So tell me when to stop shuffling.
Stop.
Okay. So
Three cards down.
3 cards down, everybody. 1, 2. Lightning boy.
Whoa, lightning boy.
I don't
Ben.
even know what that is. but
That's amazing.
You are being called to a higher power.
Okay.
To connect to something much deeper within you that you barely even know anything about.
Oh.
This is the beginning.
Oh,
Ooh.
and will I be enlightened with wisdom?
She is a
coming
starseed.
down to my crown chakra.
Melissa, do you know your starseed?
I do now.
She's a
Sweet.
she's an
Okay.
Arcturian.
Click on the little super chat
If
that
she's
Marvin
charging you
gave
for
us.
her
Press
readings,
it.
I suggest
She does. Sometimes they give me.
And I am not a huge fan of UFO Twitter or really the UFO community in general. I think there are some great people. I think you're one of them, and a lot of people who are watching and following are great people that are just people that want to know the truth. But you go through UFO Twitter and you find out that everybody's got their own little niche that they're trying to, push that their own beliefs is what they necessarily want to believe more than anything else. And if anyone infringes upon that or threatens their worldview, then they get very hostile towards them. And I see this not only on the skeptic side, which I kind of expected, which you have these militant debunkers. It goes back to this idea of these Wikipedia editors and what have you that are out there that are really trying to gatekeep information. But you also have it on the believer side of the people that are the experiencers and stuff like that as well, where it's like, even when I came in, a lot of those people have come at me, and there's a lot of people on both sides that absolutely want to see me fail, that are dedicated and committed and seem to have skin in the game on the MH370 videos being fake. So this is the part where it's like, I find the whole community extremely dysfunctional. And when I look at it at a broad scale like that, with all this gatekeeping happening on both sides, it's no surprise to me at all that we haven't been able to achieve disclosure. There's also very few people who are actually looking at the science. I would think that if I'm somebody who wants to prove that aliens exist, the very first thing I would want to do is prove that faster than light travel is possible. Because without that being possible, you've really narrowed down your possibilities of where the phenomena could be coming from. But if faster than light travel is possible, now the idea that aliens could visit us becomes very plausible. Otherwise, how are they getting here from, even Alpha Centauri, the closest star, take hundreds of years at light travel using conventional propulsion? And I see almost nobody doing that. Just shout out to like alien scientist Jeremy Reese is one of the few people I see out there digging into the science, looking into it in general. So that's what I would like to see more of.
Is that they remonetized it 3 days later, because we did appeal through UFO Twitter and asked everybody, go tell UFO Twitter that Thirdphaseofmoon, they're not doing anything or whatever. This could have gone on for months. They could have never given it back, but within 3 days, we slowly saw it coming back. There's at one point, it's kind of detrimental. That's why we opened up our secondary channel or sister channel, Third Phase UFO Report. And there was at one point where Google demonetized, our YouTube demonetized our whole channel. And everything was shut down. And that was another time the internet, that's when our channel broke too as well at one point. But the whole channel was demonetized. That's right. They didn't give us any specific reason why. That was sad. So we had to delete. We had to guesstimate. They say you're repurposing something. You're repurposing. Like, can you tell us what are you talking about? What repurpose? And then so we went ahead and deleted about 200 million. About what? How much? 30 or 40 million views of videos. We just okay, well, we'll delete this one. It could be what are they talking about? We have no idea. So unfortunately, we had to take out 30 or 40 million views of videos. Individual videos, taking a guess, not sure, because they didn't give us a specific video. It could have been specific. It's a little detrimental because that's a lot of views that you're dropping in 24 hours in an algorithm. So we could have busted our own algorithm too at the same time. Who the hell knows? But they did monetize us the next day, and it all green lit, and that was great. We got a couple numbers, and we got through to YouTube. Whatever, it seemed to work. But then that day, we used to get 500 to 1,000 subscribers a day. That's how you kind of grow a big channel like we have.
So, a lot of people know about this Roswell memory metal stories. There's thousands of testimonies about it. And then in the late 50s, early 60s, the Naval Weapons Research Laboratories came out with this shape-shifting memory metal and they called it nitinol. And as we research the actual origins of nitinol, we find out that it's a titanium alloy, and the initial research of it was done by a scientist this stuff was developed by a company in Ohio, right near Wright-Patterson, that had a contract with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to analyze materials in the 1940s. So it's a pretty decent chain of evidence that says these guys got something from Wright-Patterson, and then they actually, I think it's like Bechtel Memorial Institute, something like that. It's in the film. But anyway, these guys are the ones that originated nitinol, and then they passed it over to this Naval Weapons Research Laboratory so that they could bubble it up. And it's as close as you're going to get to a trail of evidence that says, okay, these materials somewhere, and where they're saying they originated is not correct, and where we're able to find out that they did originate is connected to all of the lore around the time of 1947. And we're able to actually lay that out with a trail of evidence that is very compelling. And they're still around today. These guys have a history of doing very, very top secret classified work for the government in materials development and in science. And this institute, for lack of a better word, has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and more secretive. So they're still around, and they're still doing this kind of stuff. And we were able to show that the scientists that was there, titanium wasn't really, they knew about it. They knew what it was. It's in the periodic tables, but they didn't really have anything that they were using it for at the time. Titanium research was in its infancy. And then all of a sudden out comes this shape-shifting titanium alloy out of Battelle that ends up coming out of the Naval Weapons Research Laboratory 5 years later. And so there's a whole paper trail about several materials that were described in a Freedom of Information Act request that we got. And so the government actually admitted in this response that they had materials that were linked to UFOs and crashed UAPs and debris. And then they released a bunch of reports about what those materials were. And the thing that the reports had most in common is that a lot of it was speculation. It's like, well, this material has these certain properties. We think that it might be good for this, or this. And it's pretty compelling, because I don't know any corporation that goes out and develops a highly advanced material if they don't know what they're going to do with it.
In the United States Congress. And I took it to the New York Times. Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Keene. We had a 3-hour meeting in Midtown Manhattan. But most importantly, I walked my talk. I took this investigation, I took my report, my notes, the still shots of this video to Congressman Gallagher, Congressman Burchett, Senator Rubio, Gillihan, Rep AOC, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Rep Nancy Mace, on and on and on. Came there, flew there like a gentleman to Washington, D.C., and handed over this report and said, I'm John Stewart. I ran for governor. I'm not crazy. Here's what I've got. And I was the first civilian to ever officially submit a extraterrestrial report to the United States Congress. And so I'm a little proud of that. And I walked my talk. Yeah.
Truly feel right now we are right on the border of that happening. You know, we've got a new group of people coming into the subject that have a lot of money behind them and have a lot of marketing teams behind them, and they can present a new history of the subject, and then everything that anybody's done before that is completely gone. And that is a dangerous place for us to go, because we can learn so much through the history, not only for the sake of research, but for the sake of understanding what people's motivations, what groups' motivations are genuinely about. And I think that's really critical. So I'm excited to be working with, a group of archivists and historians that are moving forward to get this preserved.
When you spend time with somebody, you get the notion, you get that gut feeling of, they're not full of shit or they're full of shit. And I get that. I totally understand, because there's, like I said, the secret space program, I believe in it, but do I believe that everybody that's on that train is telling the truth? I don't know. And
I think they do.
they do.
Yeah, I think
maybe had bases on the moon since the mid 1960s. We don't know, but it would, there's indications to that, I would say.
None of us do, because we didn't live that life. We didn't go through the experiences. We're all judgmental people, and that's what a lot of people do right away. And I get sick and tired of hearing the stories about Travis, because I know the story, but people rehash on it, and I get it. But when you spend time with someone like him,
and you guys are friends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you and Travis are friends. Yeah.
And like I said, we talked about this before the show. It's these people that come to this event. These aren't just people, I'm calling on a circuit list to say, hey, can you make it to my, it's not like that. These are all personal, close friends of mine over the years. And they just all happen to do what they do. And they're just, they bless me by coming to my event.
I used to love like George Norrie and Linda Moulton Howe and all that kind of stuff. And I still do in a way because they're fun to listen to sometimes. But I don't think that's where disclosure is going to go. Honestly, we're too focused on what type of alien it is or what this is when we don't even know what's going on to begin with. We just know something's going on. And I think if we come together and at least decide that much, then we can start labeling it as something else.
And they're like, you're crazy. Like they would laugh, like at work, like I'll like bring certain things up and they'll see me like reading documents and highlighting things like on my lunch break, like really like schizo stuff, honestly. But then like all the stuff in the media started coming out and I started getting more questions. And like all of a sudden there seemed to be more of a validity to it. Right. And now like when it was mentioned, they'd be like, oh, you need to talk to this guy. And I'm like, no. Like, I'm not a ufologist. I'm not like, you know what I mean? I'm just a dude, right? Like who just really likes this topic. But the stigma is still there. I still see people roll their eyes. I still get called out as like, kind of like, it's like, oh, it's that guy. Right. So I do keep it close to the chest now, even with everything in the media, like it's opened it up a bit, but you're still not exempt from like the jokes, from the side eyes, things like that. And even the UFO, the rally that I went to recently, I was filming a bit there and like there were a lot of cool people, a lot of intelligent people, but you can hear the snide remarks, people walking by, right? Like, oh, UFOs, and they would take one look at us and just like keep walking with a smirk.
If you ever see anybody online that has an issue with Skyfire News, claiming Skyfire News said something, and they don't like, what Skyfire News said, Skyfire News doesn't have an opinion. I have an opinion as an individual. So does Red, so does Tuba, and our future employees. They'll have opinions as well. And I'm sure they'll express those, on their, own personal accounts or whatnot, or if they're in a Twitter space. But Skyfire News doesn't have an opinion. It's never going to have an opinion, and it's never going to have a voice. It's just going to tell you what the trending topics are in the UFO community. And some of that will be where people are talking about something that's debunked, and some of it will be, a new UFO sighting that many people believe. But it's, we're not even really picking the news. The community's picking the news. We can see what the community is talking about. We identify what's trending and we cover it.
Implants.
Well, I've done 27 surgical interventions on alien implants from India to here. And I've kept, my information is not secret, but it is private for different reasons. One of the reasons I like it private is I talked to a guy that was involved in another implant thing. He said, well, we've got nanotechnology and all of that in our stuff. I said, okay. Well, that's what you found in yours. I said, no. What? I said, may I give you a good piece of advice? I said, there are other scientists who are not, they don't wear a UFO hat.
Right.
And they're real scientists.
Yeah.
And they're looking at your stuff real close.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying things like, the equipment you use doesn't say that. I use that equipment, and you didn't discover that information without that equipment. So how did you come to those conclusions?
Exactly.
I said, they're going to eat you alive. Don't lie, stretch, fabricate, elaborate, and all the other stuff you're talking about. So it's a piece of advice I'm telling you privately. I said, just say you misspoke or something. I said, don't hang on to this. If I'm telling you, I said, it's going to eat you alive. Don't do it.
I think a lot of us don't feel like we have a place in the outside community where we can casually talk to the grocer or like the bagging person, be like, so aliens, right? You know, pretty darn cool. Did you hear the news? And they're like, oh, the news about Kanye West. And I'm like, no, not that news. It's about aliens, man. And and so I felt really like a black sheep. Like I didn't know what I was doing. And then I found UFO Twitter and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, yes, you have the trolls, a lot of them. But overall, you're meeting people that have a somewhat similar interest and those that can kind of point you in the right direction or a direction that they believe has the possible answers, not necessarily the entire truth, because no one here has the whole truth to the story. Absolutely nobody. But on UFO Twitter and UFO Reddit, yes, you get to laugh along, but you meet people that have been in it longer than you have. And so as I keep going, doing my research, kind of being interested, I'm thinking, yeah, this is awesome, but I don't really see myself represented. When I mean myself, I mean young people, Latin Americans, even women. And I was like, you know what? I have time on my hands. I'm going to make myself a diddly darn YouTube channel and we're going to learn together. We're going to go for it. We are going to just put in all the research and go hardcore.
I'll go through remote viewing with people. So if anybody is wondering what it is, it's a way to test out, in my opinion, clairvoyance. So it's a way to test out your psychic abilities. There are different protocols that you can go through. So there's different ways that you can test it. You can test it precognitively. So like if I have an envelope, and typically I use an envelope with a hidden picture. If I didn't pick the object until after you did your submission, so if you were trying to get it from the future, that's precognitive. And so most of it is done different protocols that you can use to then test out the different variances of the psychic phenomenon. So there's telepathy, there's clairvoyance, precognition. All of these are topics that I'm going to be talking about when I talk about remote viewing.
What the reading tells
I've got to tell you something. The drive from Albuquerque to Roswell is the most desolate drive. It's probably the most desolate drive in the United States. We have 150 miles of nothing. And it's like you can understand why flying saucers want to fly around here because nobody's going to bother them.
So look at this.
I'm here in Roswell with the alien girls.
And where alien girl and mine for?
And mine. Okay.
I got mine.
Well, on World UFO Day, I mean, what more could you ask for?
You know?
Yeah, there's definitely no substitute for it. And you can have a bit more long-form conversations where invariably when you're doing it over the computer, there's tech issues, you've got limited time. It's more difficult to do that when you're doing it remotely. Plus, for us, there's a time difference. It's a nice work around people who have fixed kind of broadcast schedules as well. So it's
I swear to
yeah, no, if there was a costume contest, you'd be winning it.
Wearing? Yeah, what's Ben wearing?
Are you sporting anything over there, Ben? What is your outfit? What's your cosplay today, Ben Hansen?
Honestly, shop once every probably 5 years, and someone else, like my wife, does it for me.
I had 2 talks yesterday. I had a panel discussion and a presentation, and then I'm doing it all again today as well. So yeah, it's really good. I just love meeting everyone, hanging out. So yeah, it's been amazing. Got to meet some people like Colonel Alexander there. You know,
the government seems to be finally, admitting there are UFOs they've known for years. I think it's still kind of a drip coming out, but it's, we're making some progress. I think for decades, the government and the military just denied there was anything to UFOs, but now they're basically saying, yeah, there are UFOs out there. And
oh, that's a great question. I say this every conference I go to. It is in between all the talks, just mingling with the general public and other speakers and just having that UFO conversation that I don't get to have every day. I do it on my show, but you know, just everyday people talking UFOs, whether it's their stories, their experiences, and things like that, is just the best.
Do you think it's different in person?
Absolutely, yeah.
What's different? It's not a person on a screen, right?
It's not a person on a screen. You can.
That's how I got involved in this, is parapsychology background. So I got involved in through a precognitive dream that I had myself. I just wanted to understand it more. So I researched, you know, those topics, astral projection, out of body experiences, and it just led me to discovering a lot more about parapsychology and the researchers that took seances and mediumship and psychics and brought it into a lab so that it could be tested and replicated.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. There, to me, that was I'm a nerd. I'm a little bit of a nerd. You know.
I know, right? We're checking them out.
Area
They had to
51.
come from
Don't look
somewhere.
at Area 51 or any of that. You know, we're not doing any of that.
It's been great. Just, you know, even the ride down here from Albuquerque with Ben, we drove down across the desert. It's just been incredible. And I'd recommend to anybody who's even considering going to a conference, just do it. You will not regret it. It's the best time. It really is.
It really is.
Conversations that you can't have on Twitter and on social media. It's a completely different vibe. Everyone's happy and friendly. That's the thing, you know, you're literally talking with people who know things, and you can just exchange ideas and learn so much.
So yeah, but I think the government knows so much more about UFOs than they want to admit. That's for sure, and the military, of course. And you have to wonder, if I do, whether they've got bases on the moon already.
I think they do.
I happen to know some of the things that are coming, and there's going to be some really dramatic stuff in the future. And I'm not supposed to talk about this. The reason I put so much faith in this website case was that a number of years ago, I wrote about it in 17. I'd taken
I'm an archaeologist, so yeah, the ancient aliens kind of thing is, I think, important subject. And yet, you have to wonder if the aliens didn't ever leave. And also you have advanced Earth civilizations like Atlantis, say. So, you have all those stories, Mount Shasta, stories in Tibet of the Manas and things like that. There's a lot of stories in South America, too, of hidden bases and mountains and things. And in many cases, they may not necessarily be extraterrestrials, but they may be, humans, but it's like a secret civilization on Earth that's existed for tens of thousands of years. So how about that?
Maybe a version of them are still here.
Well, that's very much the legends of Mount Shasta in Northern California. I mean, that's since the late 1800s. We had a panel, and it went really well. And it's fun here in Roswell. You guys ought to come here next year if you can.
I'm an experiencer, but I'm also a researcher. So I have a skeptical perspective as well, but I'm very open to hear people's experiences and their opinions on just the phenomenon in general. But a lot of what I've researched comes down to the parapsychology and translating the experiences that people have into a way that you can study it that's verifiable and scientifically recognized. So I also am very interested in astral projection and a lot of the topics in terms of, I believe that, to me, one of the keys is at the out-of-body experience in that state that you're in. So some people might have seen the movie Doctor Strange, the Marvel movie Doctor Strange. And to me, watching that, it was just like my mind was blown when they go through that astral projection part of it, leaving the body, and the visualization of them being able to put that together was very impressive. But I think that is where it's such to me, a universal experience that it's not like 5 people writing books about it and everybody's just rehashing or re-talking about what they're reading. People are really exploring this, and that's what my key was, is like, I wanted to find out for myself about CE5, about astral projection, so that I was exploring these personally.
For everyone to have differences of opinion, as long as you keep it respectful, that's fine. But there is only a small portion of the information in the public domain at the moment. So I'd say to everyone, just hold back a little bit and wait and see how this plays out. And
for the Roswell Daily Record, because Toby Martinez here set up
that interview, had a live discussion with Tim Burchett. And so to get a congressional representative live at a UFO conference talking about all this, I'm here. What are your questions? And so that was great. You know, the fact that just so much going on with this right now, and it's not just, you know, we talk about the Senate, it's the House, it's the Senate, so it's right across Congress, it's in the intelligence committees, the Armed Services Committee, the House Oversight Committee has now said that it's going to have a hearing as well. So, I mean, it's not just a one-off. So this month, July, expect to see the next NASA report drop, I think, by the end of the month. The next report from AARO, Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, should be dropping. I think the House Oversight Committee, still some issues to sort out on the timing, but it's coming, it's coming. And look, here's a live prediction for you.
Listen, folks.
Okay. In the last 3 weeks, we've had, of course, David Grush coming forward. I will predict that within another 3 weeks, maybe sooner, but within 3 weeks, I think we'll be hearing from at least one more whistleblower, maybe more. And I think we will have some corroborative evidence, people kind of validating David Grush's story, validating his credentials, though I think that's beyond dispute. There are into at least two, I think three, former intelligence community people who say, yeah, I knew Dave. You know, I knew that he was on the UAP task force. So that's a done deal, as you say. Obviously, Congress is working to validate the information that he's briefed them on. We need to know, and this would be great, but we need to know the name of the program. We need to know who is the commanding officer or the director of the program, depending on whether it's military or civilian. We need to know what agency it is embedded in. And of course, it may not be an agency. It may be embedded in the private sector. People have talked about big aerospace companies. Maybe we look there. But with those three pieces of information, the project name, the director, and where it actually is, Congress can then really go after it. Because if you say, oh, there's a legacy program or programs somewhere in the U.S. intelligence community, well, there are 18 different parts of the USIC. So how would you, even Congress, find it? But if you actually know where to look, that's more than half of the battle. And I don't know the full details of what Dave Grush has told them, but you know, watch this space. So all of these people are patriots. Whether we're talking about Dave Grush, whether we're talking about people who've come forward previously like Lou Elizondo, these people are patriots. They want to do the right thing, but they want to do it the right way. And make no mistake about it, the full might of the criminal justice system would come down on them, and rightly so, if they inadvertently disclosed classified information to the public. Because while you might say, oh, but the American people have a right to know, you tell the American people, you're also telling Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. So, look, there is a process for this. That process is set out in the defense bill, of course. Dave Grush has been very careful. He went, for example, to DOPSA, the Defense Office of Publication, Pre-Publication Security Review, to even clarify what he could say in his various written statements on this. He's gone in parallel, as you know, to the U.S. To the Intelligence Community Inspector General to make a complaint about retribution. But even though the relationship is obviously not good between him and his former employers, he will still have friends and contacts in the system. You don't do that kind of job. It's an elite club. And I wouldn't be. And look, I left the Ministry of Defense years ago. I'm still in their fantasy football team. There is a scoop. I did not do very well this season, I have to say. But the point is, you stay in touch. And my point is, Dave Grush will still be in touch with people still serving, and a whole bunch of retirees who will respect him for what he's doing.
Yeah.
But he knows, and they know, that they have to go through the right process. So he's been very careful. When he's told Congress, he's made sure that he's only told them things which he's authorized to do. So he can't just blurt it out to a staffer who doesn't have the appropriate security clearance. So he's an honorable man. He's doing the right thing, but there is a process, and he has to be careful. And if he's not careful, there will be a knock on the door. Even though, and Bryce is right, obviously, he's not experienced on television. So his first interview, some would say, was a little raw. I say that's a good thing. You don't want somebody who's giving you all spin and polish. It's like, give me the facts, give me the data. Now, again, I go back to the point, he has to be super careful with all of this. But very often, let me put it this way. Sometimes when you find something, that's interesting. Sometimes when you don't find something, that's interesting itself. There's a gap. And you look at the gap and you say, why is there a gap? So if the message is, I can't talk about Roswell, that tells you something in and of itself. With all of these intelligence programs, they're not only highly compartmentalized and highly classified, but the need to know principle applies too across everything. So it's perfectly possible you can have a situation where, I don't know, somebody on a legacy UFO program knows about the Rendlesham Forest incident and the Tic Tac incident, but doesn't know about Roswell. It works in silos. Yeah. Hours time. I'm on a panel with David Childress, John Alexander, John Dover, and Stan Milford. So yeah, that's going to be great. We did the same panel yesterday, same people. What an amazing, interesting that Bigelow, who of course had the ATIP project and famously owned Skinwalker Ranch, now sold it and he's moved on. And some people say, maybe one reason why Bigelow doesn't really talk about this anymore is because he's found what he's looking for. He's found the answer.
Right.
Maybe.
So he moved on to his next question.
And maybe, I know this is a little bit out there, but some people say, maybe, what if there's a connection between UAP and the survivability of death, consciousness surviving death? And by the way, sorry, I'm seeing all
we
the...
want to ask this called
Okay.
Berkshire. He's got 3 million subscribers.
Okay.
He's actually on the show. So.
Am I concerned that UFOs could be used as a cover for psychotronic weapons testing, false perceptions and such? Absolutely. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, in their preliminary assessment on UAP published in June 2021, said, look, there is not going to be one single neat solution to the UFO mystery. Lots of different things could be going on. Could some of this be a psyop? Absolutely. When the CIA they wrote a paper on estimated probability because of something that went wrong in Vietnam, and they said, well, we did a briefing and we told the general it's not very likely that they have surface-to-air missiles there, and then we got a plane shot down because they have surface-to missiles, but we told him it wasn't very likely. And then so they said, well, you need to, when you say it's possible that, or it's likely that, or it's probable that, what do you mean by that? Put percentage figures on it. And so the CIA wrote a paper back in the day. The Ministry of Defense has percentages that if you say it's virtually certain that, so if you say Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction, rather than say, I believe the data show, you should use those official words of estimated probability. But I don't know, psychotronic weapons, psyops, it's possible.
There's a lot of people about there's quite a bit going on behind the scenes. There's a lot, like a whole lot. There's, my God, there's let's just say, if you're really into this subject and you want answers, you're going to get some, or you're going to start getting some, like real tangible answers. You know, we're going to, this is basically, there's no way that this doesn't change everything, you know, and that change is about to occur. And
because UFOs are taken so seriously now, like UFOs is in everything. It's entertainment, late night TV, news, television shows, film, unscripted, scripted, YouTubers, like it's everywhere. Like you cannot get away from UFOs, even if you want to, which I love. Like we're living in the best time for UFOs right now. If you love UFOs, this is the time to be alive. And then more people are coming forward because less ridicule. And being like, I love UFOs. I've always have. Now I get like, hey, can I tell you a story? So I get tons of people like sending me their UFO stories all the time. And I love it. And even like friends of mine, because I've been talking about this since I was like a little kid with them. And so they know that. And then when I started to have more, the reason why when I think I was talking about this on our other live stream that we did with UFO Jane. The only reason that I was able to start talking about UFOs in a mainstream media wise was because of the Pentagon and 2017, really, Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal's piece really started it, where I could actually start doing my normal job, PR, what I do on a daily basis, and put it into the UFO world. And that was cool. And that was where I was, that's how I kind of came into this in a different way. It was like, I was able to do it because before I wasn't allowed to talk about UFOs to the media because I would not have been, people would have thought I was loopy, like the ridicule really bad. So I wouldn't have been able to do my actual job, but now I can do both, which is cool. So that makes me excited. Yeah.
You know, I had this thought earlier. I don't know if I would say disclosure per se, but an event coming. I feel like there's something going to happen soon.
Yeah.
And I don't think disclosure is what I have in mind either.
No.
I think it's something separate, and I feel like I'm being pushed in that direction, you know?
Yeah.
Weird feeling.
I've had the same kind of a thing. There's something we have to do, John, and I don't know what it is exactly. There's something we're supposed to remember.
But that has been intentionally strangled here. It's what's called the veil. Everybody hears about it. It's intentional to create this forgetfulness and to allow for an awakening experience and self-realization.
That was the message that I had when I've gone back, and it's like, what the hell? Why? What happened? And it's like, no, you need to remember. And it's like, okay, I remember the event. I remember all the different things, but there is something, and probably this is it of what, yeah, I'm getting the answer. This is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be bringing this out. We're supposed to go ahead and being able to communicate this and bring it to the forefront of everyone. And only if we can come together as people who have had these kind of experiences and start to share the different details, like things you're saying, and it's just, you know, going off my head, just putting huge light bulbs on, saying yes, yes. I mean, I got one of my usual sense, if you want to call it, responses I get from that other side. And when I started saying this, I just had the whole vibration just came over my body. It's kind of cool.
It's an amazing
Yes.
feeling. It's like standing on a subwoofer sometimes.
Yeah.
I think we're all feeling it, you guys. It's just something about to happen.
Hashtag UFO Twitter is a good place to come and learn, but there's also a lot of really crazy, horrible things that happen here that I think are perpetuated by cartel operations. But if you're able to navigate that successfully, you can learn a lot of good stuff and learn from experiencers, which I find very valuable.
It's very limiting. In fact, you know, we have to, even down to how we live, we have to consume food and all this weird stuff to survive, and we have to keep this body going. It's all very tedious. But you get into these higher realms, these dimensions between the physical world and, let's just say, God, right? There's these different layers, just like the atmosphere, right? The stratosphere and all that stuff. There's these different layers, these different barriers between us and supposedly in God, right? And so these beings are coming from these higher places. And that's kind of understood, I think, by everybody. Well, with the idea of they're so much smarter, their technology so much more advanced. Very few people have suggested that aliens are coming from a lower place, a place of ignorance. A lot of them think and assume, and maybe rightfully so, that these beings are of a higher intelligence.
Thanks for having me on the show. Here we go. Here we are. Don't forget to subscribe, tune in, and lots of fascinating stuff.
They're like, where's Nick Cope?
No, where's Nick Cope? He's on Alien Guard.
There's Lee. What's up?
What's up?
Lee did all the tracks, you guys. This is First Floor Audio.
Like I said, there is more.
Maybe I was thinking about it, Lee. We should just play your tracks the whole time. Let's just throw the UFO news out. It's not fun anymore. So serious. I'm sick of it. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. How did you get here?
I speak for my personal leadership over at NGA. I tried to look at every report that came through that I could triage. So,
how in the hell?
Do you believe that officials at the highest levels of our national security apparatus have unlawfully withheld information from Congress?
Of the YouTube algorithm.
There are certain elected leaders that had more information that I'm not sure what they've shared with certain Gang of Eight members or etc. But
did you manage to find yourself here?
You've stated that the government is in possession of potentially non-human spacecraft.
We are broadcasting here live and alive in the middle of the desert.
Do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
In the heart of alien country.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
as I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
And one day, it's all going to come out.
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
The bodies, the documents, the craft.
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
They're going to say, you know what they're going to say. It's going to say. They always do.
I can give you a specific cooperative and hostile witness list of specific individuals.
And you're going to say, well, no, man. I knew too, because I was listening to all of my podcast friends, and I was also listening to